Bill, Anthony, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Phil, it's great to have you back, and Anthony, nice to meet you. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing really well. It's always a day when I get to wake up and work on ArDrive. So,
yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned waking up, working on ArDrive. I guess for those who are new to ArDrive, what is ArDrive and what does it do?
So ArDrive is an application that lets you permanently store your data on Arweave. Right. So, we are meant to really be easy to use, intuitive, simple, straightforward, very similar to some of the cloud sync Dropbox apps you may be familiar with. And we, want to let the user store their data forever, as well as, ensure that it can be private forever. So that's another kind of big thing that we focus on is the privacy aspect of ArDrive, ensuring nobody else can kind of see your data. You're the only one who has the keys to that. And it's on Arweave, so there's no monthly fees or anything like that. You just pay for per file when you upload that data. And then the other kind of unique thing, I guess, about the ArDrive app is we're backed by a DAO, or a decentralized community that's also built on Arweave using the profit sharing model. Profit sharing token model. So we like to think we're, somewhat of a unique app and kind of a unique group of people and community members standing behind it.
Sure, and thanks for that. And I think in that answer that opened up quite a few interesting avenues. Picking up on the mention on Dropbox. So then if we take Dropbox as an example of a legacy company which provides a certain service, how does ArDrive differ, or how is it similar to something like Dropbox?
Well, it's similar in many ways, right? And we're not necessarily shy about that, right? Because we do want this very easy to use, reliable interface like Dropbox, right, or OneDrive, but connected to Arweave and storing your data forever. And that's really where we want to start, right? We do want to introduce other things on top of it, but the ability to upload your data, download it, share it, organize your information in different folders. We're opening up the ability to tag it with different kinds of metadata. So, we are very similar in that regards, but it's stored permanently, right? It's on this decentralized ledger that we know and love called Arweave. It's spread around the world. It's not managed by a single corporation, based in the United States that's responding to its shareholders. And again, to harp on the privacy aspect, we can't see that data, right? Like you use Dropbox, they're doing all kinds of scanning of that information, and who knows what other things that they're doing. So similar from kind of a UI, experience perspective, but we like to think we're very different in those other categories.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioning the privacy element as well. That's a really nice feature, because I think previously I was uploading some files on Arweave and I thought, well, these are useful to me, but I'm not sure if I want these just sort of willy-nilly put out there. So I take it that each user can then have their own sort of safe or encrypted folder where they can upload their stuff. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. We kind of call them drives. So when you first log into ArDrive, you can create a public drive where everything is permanently public, or a private drive, which uses a unique key that you're the only one who has access to, using the best encryption. And you could put your honeymoon photos on there, or whatever private information, knowing that it's permanent and you're the only one who can access it. Or share it if you choose.
Another thing you mentioned with Dropbox is obviously the no monthly fees. Obviously as Arweavers, we know the notion of paying only one time and being able to store the files permanently. How much does it currently cost to use ArDrive? Do you have a fixed pricing? If it's dynamic, how does it change? What affects that?
That comes down a little bit to our DAO and our community. So something like the fees, what we apply fees to, how much the fee should be. That's something that we really want the DAO to kind of dictate. and govern, right? So the one primary fee that we have now is when you upload your data, we add what's called a community tip on top of that. That fee is 15% on top of the data upload price. And that was something that the DAO voted on and is kind of etched in the block weave as well. So that's primarily the main fee that we add on top of the price of uploading data to Arweave. Now, as you might know, that data price to Arweave in the past, when really, I guess 2019, 2020, that price was dynamic or was volatile along with the hash rate of the network. Since I think March of this year, since some of the core protocol has been going under some upgrades, the data price on Arweave has been somewhat fixed. I think it's, 0.55 or something like that, AR per gigabyte. So a few weeks ago when AR was really cheap, right, that was a really good price. That was like $4 or $5 for a gig. AR price, it's been really popular lately. So now it's $14 or $15 per gig. A couple things, right? One, in the long term, in speaking with the rest of the community and some of my understanding from what the core team is hoping to achieve with the protocol, that price the data price is supposed to go back to being variable and not kind of fixed to the price of AR. And then we at ArDrive, we're also looking to introduce our own easy to understand like price calculators, right? So if you just know, hey, I have $50, right? How much can I get for that? Or, I have 10 AR and I want to know how many, photos I'll be able to upload with that. We want to make that easy for users too. So we're working on a little calculator to help demystify some of the pricing stuff. Because it is ultimately more expensive than Dropbox, right? Like going back to that comparison, permanent storage costs more, right? You're paying to host that data for a really, really long period of time. So, it costs a bit more upfront.
I think that's a very, very good point you raised in just now. I think, and maybe right now it's like when Rolexes were invented and they cost $10 each. And then as the popularity, I don't think they ever cost $10 each, but I think with the prices, relatively, in my view, my personal view, quite low to store something forever. Maybe a certain type of data is stored more than if the price were much, much higher. Do you think that the price may, what kind of effect do you think that might have in the future? Do you think that people will start to, behave differently and archive differently and choose different files and see it differently? Or do you think it's like, everybody's going to be like, oh, the price is unstable, so I'm not going to use this anymore because it's too expensive and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's definitely a really good question. I think already, because it's permanent storage and you can't delete stuff, I really hope everybody who thinks about using ArDrive and thinks about using permanent storage realizes that what they're putting there has to be finished, final, something you want to keep for a really long time and worth that extra cost you're paying, right? Like you don't want to put some, a really bad video of yourself that you don't really care to see ever again, right? Or working documents or, those kinds of pieces of data that doesn't justify the cost. I'm not stopping you if you want to do that, great. But I think the fact that it's permanent should make you really think about what should go on there. But to your point, Rob, there's definitely, what is it? I guess a price ceiling or something like that, right? For your everyday kind of retail customer or user, they can only afford so much. So, maybe do reserve it for the really, really special stuff. But I do think the Arweave network in general, right, could outprice itself, so to speak, and really, have very expensive storage. But that just means that the data that's going up there has to really be worth it, right? Like look at some of the stuff that Kive is doing with cross-blockchain, archiving. That's really, really important data for other blockchains. And yeah, they could really afford permanent storage. But your everyday person who's got some pictures of, their kids, like, okay, permanent storage, cheaper permanent storage is one thing, but if it gets to be really expensive, that could definitely be a downside to reach that type of user, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very, I think it's a great point you mentioned about Kive, and would like to understand a little bit about your interactions with other projects within the ecosystem. But before that, I did want to ask, is it possible for users of ArDrive to perform some kind of, I guess, data arbitrage, where if the price is agreeable now for storing data, could they sort of bulk buy ArDrive tokens, or is that how it works? And then sort of, if you like, pay for that storage up front, and then when they're ready to use it, they can do so at a lower cost. I guess this would be the case if one were to assume that the price of Arweave were to go up, and thus the cost of storage were to go up. So to sort of purchase in advance, if you like. I mean, I guess you could do that through buying Arweave as well, but is there a way to do that on ArDrive?
No. So we're an app that's built on Arweave, right? So when you upload data through ArDrive, you have to spend Arweave tokens. Yes, we have the ArDrive token, and it's for governance and profit sharing and hopefully some other cool things. But to get to it, to transact on the Arweave network, right, the nodes only accept Arweave tokens. So at this point, there's no way to lock in a certain data price, today, and then benefit from that a year from now. To your point, yeah, you can always buy Arweave tokens. Right?
Yeah, guys, sorry, I didn't want to shill Arweave any more than I already do, but
no,
just really wanted to understand how it worked.
Yeah, no, it's and the point is, we would love to get to the point where you needed it. It would be very frictionless to just buy the Arweave tokens on demand to use them at that point, right? So you figure if the data price is cheap one day, okay, if it's cheap, great. You have to buy less Arweave token that day to upload. So I think that's going to be really important for our success, and I think a lot of Web3 apps is to just have that frictionless way of acquiring the token. Because really there is no way to guarantee kind of the price, but if we can make it easy so you can get that token whenever you want to upload. If the token's cheap, great, you can buy some to upload. If the data price is cheap, great, you can buy some to upload. That's what I think we're going to really be focusing on. We started that with the fiat on-ramps, right, and working with Transact and Ramp Network to get their services in the Arweave ecosystem. But we're not stopping there, right, when it comes to just making it easy for people to get the token to even upload the files.
Sure. Guys, feel free to ask questions if something comes to mind. Otherwise, I'll just continue.
And I'd like to add one more thing to that. And Phil, I think all your points are super salient. But just as in the regular physical world, like different commodities, they change in price, they fluctuate, and when there are opportunities for consumers to consume a commodity at a higher rate because of favorable rates for them, a lot of businesses will work around that. Like a silly one that comes to mind is like when like pork futures are cheap or something, the McRib sandwich comes back and people go crazy for McRib sandwiches, right? So we do have those two kind of pricing levers to work with. One is the sort of fiat to AR conversion rate, which is going to make your ability to AR be stronger or weaker depending on the day. And then also, as Phil said, once Arweave goes back to having a hash rate dependent price for data relative to Arweave, there could be some advantages for people to upload data on those specific days. I can envision a future where players in the crypto space that are using crypto tokens to pay for services are letting users know, hey, now's a great time for you to go and go and use these tokens the way that you want to on our platform. And I could foresee us in the future, offering advice like that to our customers.
Right. No, thanks for clarifying, Earl. So I guess that it's an interesting time right now because maybe I'm wrong on this, but it certainly feels like the demand in terms of purchasing demand of Arweave at the moment, and thus the price of Arweave, if I might speculatively venture, I think it's more driven by speculation itself rather than fundamental usage. It's not as if everybody's suddenly saying, "Oh, I can archive all my files forever, so I'm going to buy Arweave for the future." I think they're more likely buying it because they think it's going to appreciate in value. How do you think things might change for ArDrive as Arweave starts to, if the price of Arweave starts to be more correlated with people actually using it when Arweave actually gets discovered by the masses?
Yeah, and I mean we're kind of already seeing that a little bit, right? It's certainly not at the volume needed to sustain the Arweave market cap, just of users, right? And not imagine if you had no speculators on Arweave and the only people buying Arweave tokens were users of apps, right? Like we're not there yet, but we do see different teams, power users, groups that do have important data. They don't necessarily, I don't want to say they don't care about the price of Arweave, but they're more focused on archiving that data, and they're getting the tokens purely to use for uploading. So it is happening kind of already in smaller amounts, right? And we're trying to kind of work with these groups and give them really good white glove service to just get them into the ecosystem and get their stuff permanently uploaded. But it does pose an interesting question, right? If we're thinking in the future and there's massive demand for Arweave or for ArDrive, and there's this continual need for Arweave tokens, I think that's just where the laws of kind of supply and demand come to play. And we hopefully at that point the Arweave network has only gotten bigger, and the hash rate gets bigger as the price of the token appreciates, which lowers the price of data upload. So I think it's kind of a fine balance that has to be achieved longer term. But we're already starting to see, demand purely for the permanent data side of Arweave, and not, I'm buying it because I want to 3x my crypto stack or something.
Hey, maybe it's possible to do both.
And I agree with Phil there. I think, until we get sort of the data prices to sort of vary as a function of hash rate, it could be troublesome for folks to try to compete for AR tokens and speculators. But, once that sort of works its way into the tokenomics of Arweave, or back into, I should say, I think hopefully this problem becomes less of a concern for our users.
I was going to say to that comment, hopefully both. That's one of the things that we're also kind of doing at ArDrive is, yes, you have to spend money to buy AR, and do a little speculation on the longevity of this system, and go through some hoops to get the AR. But that's part of the reason why we're doing programs like Dust, where we're rewarding users with our ArDrive tokens just by uploading your data and kind of trying things out and trying out the network. And those ArDrive tokens will can slowly reward you with more AR in the future as the ArDrive apps earn some income. So that's kind of the other side of this, right? Like, yes, you have to buy AR, and then using an app like ArDrive, you also kind of get membership into our community, which lets you potentially earn a little bit more on the side, which you can then just use to upload more data to Arweave. Right, so we're really trying to build this kind of sustainable system that is the best for our users.
Right. Yeah, I was actually having a look at your site, and the Dust connection got me excited because I was a former Counter-Strike player. Not very seriously, but I did enjoy it. So what's the deal there? Is this a you chose the Dust name from having an affinity with Counter-Strike, and this is the sort of incentivization program? Or do you actually get paid to play Counter-Strike? Otherwise, I'll stop playing again.
I don't think I ever made a single dollar playing Counter-Strike, but man, that would have been nice.
Guys, do that. That would be really great. Get paid to play on Dust.
I played CS before. It was like cool to be like a professional gamer. I feel like it's a cool thing nowadays. But.
1.6, or were you a later?
Yeah, even before that. So it was
impressive.
Now I'm going back. Luckily, I channeled those, that video game energy into something a little bit more worthwhile, like ArDrive. Not saying video games aren't worthwhile, but
is it all right if I hop in with a question?
Of course,
yes, go ahead.
Welcome to hear from you.
Hey Phil, appreciate everything you guys have been doing. Great work. Just had a couple questions actually. So first question, maybe I'll start with the first one. So first one, being an ArDrive holder, I notice how, first, are you able to mention what the yield is kind of just generally off of the tips being earned for the PSTs? Like a yearly yield? Do you have any sense of that at the moment, or is that's a constantly developing number, I guess?
Yeah, so I guess it's not yield like depositing a stable coin and getting a daily rate or something. I could, let's do this here. We do have information around how much the community has earned. And that could indicate how much a given community holder has received, could have received. I think if I could maybe do this live here. Right, because we take 15% of the mining fees, right? We add 15% on top of that. And then basically we read our smart contract. We get a list of token holders, right? We weight that list based on how many tokens you have. So the more tokens you have, the higher chance you can receive a reward. And then we randomly send that tip out to that recipient. So now we understand that is not a perfect system.
Yeah.
Right. Let's say somebody uploads a movie, big file, big tip, right? Like that can kind of get skewed. It's you could be the person who randomly gets only the small tip, versus the guy who randomly gets 0.1 AR for a really big file. So we realize it's not a perfect even distribution. We've been trying to think of ways to really smooth that out, or even just report on it, right? Like we like to say, yes, there's going to be this 10 million hard cap of our token, and if you have 1% of that, you should get 1% of the tips, right? Like that's what we say, but we haven't been able to measure that to really ensure that the distribution is happening with that level of effectiveness. If I look at like our some of our stats here, if I can go to all time, right? So we've had around 1,900 mining fees paid total in ArDrive. The community has earned, 280 of those, right? So that's been distributed to our token holders. So multiply that by the amount of AR per amount of dollars per AR, and you can kind of get an estimate. But yeah, that's the best that I can do in terms of giving an indication of some kind of yield, or if you hold, you can expect this much.
That. Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that. The second question, I kind of noticed there's other PSTs where there's these apps and these teams, and they're building out ecosystems, not just the one app, but multiple different revenue streams, I guess, for lack of a better term. But I'm guessing, just going back to ArDrive, I mean, I know you guys are so smart. You guys have been developing for so long. I'm sure you guys have other ideas. And is there a possibility that further apps being created by the team will continue to generate tips underneath the same ArDrive PST, or if you had other ideas, is the interest in creating a new PST? Or
no, it's a great question, Vimal. So a few thoughts on that. So first, no, there's been no discussion of separate PST, or if ArDrive had a different app, then the revenue would go to a different PST or anything like that, right? Our mobile app is going to have the same data upload fees distributed the same way, right? Our CLI, same thing. So it's all going to follow that same tipping model and that same profit sharing token. We are looking at a couple different things though, right? So yeah, we have the one fee data upload, right? We are looking at really capitalizing on some of the value that RFS gives users and developers. So we're looking at potentially adding some other fees to doing things like creating a drive, folder, editing, moving, things like that. Just another small micro transaction that could be added on top of those transactions. So again, fractions of a cent, but at least this is another fee that's generated, that's distributed to a random token holder. So it's something that people will receive, could receive. And we're looking at applying that to other places, right? Like as we develop more advanced features, like for example, creating a collaboration drive, right? Maybe the tip is greater for that. But then we're also looking at other things on the ArDrive token itself. And okay, how do we imbue it with more utility, right? Because right now it's just governance and revenue sharing. So we're looking at things where, okay, maybe you have to hold a certain amount of tokens to get some benefits in the app, to maybe unlock a certain feature. Maybe you have to burn or spend a token to unlock a certain feature. Maybe you have to stake a certain amount of tokens to lower your fees, or get a different level of access in the app. So we do recognize that the token itself needs some love. So it's more than just holding it to get the tips, right? So we want to add tips and give more utility to the token as well. But we're not planning on changing it from the ArDrive PST, right? Unless some crazy reason happens. Does that kind of answer your question a bit, Vimal?
Yeah. So maybe I'm I like to think of PSTs like companies, and I know that might not be the best way to think of it in terms of legality, but like if you were to create a secondary app with other functions, yeah. So like you kind of answered that, like if there's additional functions and additional revenue streams, it could kind of accrue to the PST holder as well. So yeah, no, that's useful.
We hold
one thing I want to add, Phil. One thing I want to add is that we are increasingly getting lots of interest in integrations, for other development, other apps that are in development or other platforms that are in development that want to use ArDrive. And so, Phil alluded to, continuing to capitalize on the value of RFS. So our RFS, for anyone on the call who's not familiar, is the RE file system that is sort of the bedrock technology on which ArDrive is built. It is essentially a file system layer built on top of the RE blockchain. And that is what allows ArDrive to give you this really nice file system-like presentation of the data that you have uploaded. And so we do have some developer libraries, which right now I would describe them to be in a nascent phase, but which are in pretty due time going to be pretty capable, and which we're going to want to share with the development community. So that's going to create sort of like lots of opportunities for others to go ahead and build on top of ArDrive, and we think greatly increase the amount of tip revenue generated. So yeah, even though those wouldn't be other apps like they would be, I guess, technically in the ArDrive ecosystem because people are building on top of RFS, but they wouldn't be other ArDrive apps. And though those apps might have their own tokens for their own kinds of things, like if they're using our core libraries to interface with RFS and to present data in ArDrive, that's still going to imbue value to the ArDrive token.
Okay, that sounds great. I have to hop off, but yeah, appreciate everything. You guys have been doing a great job. Highest respect goes to you guys, and super transparent. And appreciate that always. So thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Vimal. Great questions. We just had a question from Marcin written in the general chat. Yeah, feel free to answer him by typing if you want as well, but I'll just read it out here. So he has a general question, not specifically about ArDrive, as everyone knows the feature of the official Arweave web plugin, where you can easily snapshot a currently open website. I've asked that in Discord like 1-2 years ago, maybe. Is it possible to build a tool which not only saves the currently open website, but also every website behind every link, and also every link further? it's like choosing how many layers you want to save. If people could build websites locally and use the browser plus the tool, quote unquote, to completely build a complex website onto Arweave. I hope you understand my thought somehow. I don't know if it has any use case, but wanted to ask about opinions too.
Yeah, so it could definitely be done. And to his point, it's exactly that, right? You're copying a website, you're copying every asset and then uploading each one with a single manifest that kind of links it all together. So it could certainly be done, right? I don't know if a team like Verdo or someone like that would look to do this. This kind of feature we don't have in our roadmap, but it could certainly be cool, right? Like, hey, yeah, have a little CLI command to copy sites or something. At some point, once we kind of have our main libraries done and the main RFS kind of actions all completed, we definitely want to integrate with as many other tools and platforms as possible, right? Whether it's file sharing services like G Drive or OneDrive or whatever, or social networks like Instagram or Facebook, or even a simple way to just back your site up or back your blog up to ArDrive, with the method that Marcin is kind of talking about. So I don't think I would necessarily count this out as something we could do, but it's just, not something we've done. Yeah.
Phil, one other thing I wanted to do here is give a shout out to the RConnect team. So Marcin mentions the snapshot functionality in the official Arweave plugin. I think it's talking about the Arweave wallet, but the RConnect wallet has its snapshot feature for downloading a page. Downloads those pages directly into ArDrive. That's an integration that we have with them, and we work on with them collaboratively. That's an open source tool, so if anyone wanted to go ahead and add web crawling to that, they could. It's not something that, like Phil said, not something that we have in our roadmap at all. So that's one thing I wanted to call out. The other piece I wanted to call out, because I think this is sort of inherent in the way Marcin asked this question, is whether or not you could deploy websites to Arweave. And the answer to that is yes. There are tools. In fact, some built by the Arweave team themselves. Arweave Deploy comes to mind. That will allow you to deploy sites if you're building locally and wanted to deploy them to Arweave. And then also, there are suites of tools coming out in the Arweave ecosystem to sort of deploy other, more high-powered dynamic services and things like that as dApps. So that's an exciting space for us. One of our goals, I think this is a piece that I wanted to speak to about ArDrive itself. One of our goals is to make Arweave a permanent app and have zero centralized components. So this is a little bit outside of the realm of the question, but just in the spirit of making sites and things like that permanent, making ArDrive itself a permanent app is definitely one of our long-term technological goals.
Fantastic. And thanks so much for answering the question. You've mentioned now, Kive, Verto, and now RConnect. Maybe this is an opportunity for me to ask, and Wizzle, thanks for the question. I'll ask right after this. But how are things in the ecosystem? Are you engaging with other projects? How are the relationships there? From my point of view, it seems like a really unique and friendly place. But from your point of view as founders within the ecosystem, could you tell us a little bit about how you're working with other projects, if you are, and your views in general?
Yeah, of course. We love working with other projects, whether it's a new project on Arweave that's just trying to feel around the ecosystem, like Traxa, for example, and they want to use ArDrive in their MVP, or if it's a project coming from another blockchain looking to use permanent storage in their NFTs, like Car Culture, or if it's kind of established teams and projects, in Arweave itself. And there's a bunch, right? Verdo and the Theta team, of course, we work with them on a lot of stuff. RConnect being the biggest thing recently. We use their Astatine, token distribution script for our Dust program. We're looking at atomic NFT contracts and introducing that in ArDrive, and that's something else that's kind of in collaboration with Verdo and the Theta team. So yeah, I mean, those guys are geniuses. We love working with them. We're actually meeting again with Al from Koi next week to talk about their attention rewarding system again, and how ArDrive can work with their NFT contracts. Because again, we want to make it so that anyone can put their data in ArDrive and have it be used in any of these other systems. That's really one of the beautiful things about the permaweb. Yeah, so Community XYZ, definitely another big project that we work close with. Mass Network, we have an open bounty with them, trying to get ArDrive in their apps. They're like a Web 2 style application that connects with blockchain. So we're really trying to see, who we can work with, what sticks, what use cases are the best for ArDrive, which ones aren't as strong. And yeah, of course, if anyone here is listening and wants to get in touch to see how they could really use ArDrive, definitely just join our Discord, and we would love to speak with you no matter what stage your project is in.
That's really awesome. I think it's it never ceases to amaze me how collaborative you guys are within the ecosystem. I know there's collaborations in the wider crypto space, but I think if we just take as a general example the Ethereum network, it does seem a little bit more between projects a little bit more adversarial. Whereas every indication I've seen within the Arweave ecosystem, everybody's been working really closely together and sharing a lot of, even sharing personnel, seemingly without any problems whatsoever, and just really collaborative and constructive, which I think it's mind-blowingly healthy, if that's even a phrase.
Yeah.
But
I have to say that we being the Arweave ecosystem, we shouldn't watch out for that kind of tribalism stuff, right? I think as more things are built on Arweave, it's going to get more competitive, right? There's going to be more overlaps in what apps are doing and what teams are doing, and it's going to get more competitive. But I think we all have to just live and breathe this notion of permanent storage and kind of an open web. And hopefully the community keeps that for the years to come.
Yeah.
And one more point, one thing I'd like to add on that as well, our code is open source, right? We try to be transparent to the best of our ability with, how we build and operate this platform. And because of that, it means we can accept external PRs, to change our code. And in fact, just today we did, or in the last 24 hours, did ship, a nice bug fix for ArDrive Web that was submitted by user Domob. Give him a quick shout out. So thanks to him for helping do some debugging and independently going and presenting a fix for us that we were able to test internally and validate. And that's just a super wonderful way for us to interact with our community, right? Like our users, those that have the tech skills to help us, build things and fix them to their liking. We're really grateful for their engagement. So just a reminder to everyone that if you want to know how things work, the code's there, and we're always willing to accept external PRs.
Awesome. I have a question from Wizzle then. Wizzle, thanks a lot for waiting. So does ArDrive have plans to recognize the commercial B2B viability in the near future?
Commercial B2B viability. So I think, in my opinion, a few things still need to happen to really support that. So if you've been, using Arweave the past, few months, the reliability isn't 100%. Or it's not where I would like it to be before really presenting a good solution to businesses. I think they have a lot more expectations when it comes for technology services. That's not to say there haven't been a few groups who have approached us interested in using ArDrive for records management, for example. So we do see that as something that we want to invest in, right? Maybe at some point we get someone for sales and start, cranking away at enterprise relationships and business relationships to see, kind of what sticks. I just don't think our apps are ready. I also don't think some of the flexibility is ready in the apps. I have a background in document management systems, records management systems, of which ArDrive kind of is, right? You upload your files, you organize them. I mean, it's a document management system to a degree. there are lots of requirements and complex things that businesses need out of those kinds of systems, and I just don't think all the functionality is there yet either with ArDrive. But that is one of the cool things about using ArDrive is you can upload your data now, and as we build those features, you will benefit from them in the future. So yeah, near future for commercial B2B, no, I would say no to that. Medium term to long term future, absolutely.
And that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that thorough answer, Villaneros. I really appreciate it. It does make a lot of sense. There was one thing you said that piqued my interest, and that was when the system is ready, when you think the flexibility is there. What, in your opinion, needs to happen in order for the system to be ready?
Yeah, so one part of that is network reliability. Right. So right now, most of the apps on Arweave are pointing to the arweave.net gateway. I know the team has been hard at work at open sourcing that code and making it so that individual community members and teams can take a part of the gateway system and run their own. So we're working on doing that to provide better performance and reliability for ArDrive users. I think the other key pieces that we're missing with ArDrive right now, forget about fiat on-ramp and getting the tokens, right? Let's say there was a business, we could just sell them Arweave tokens directly and facilitate all of that. But you can't have multiple users on a single drive, right? You can't collaborate on one drive. I think that could be a blocker for some enterprises. I think being able to apply different sets of metadata could potentially be a blocker. And yeah, just the speed of downloading and the speed of uploading. It's slow now, right? So if you have lots of data, it's not exactly easy to put it all in there. Yeah, I think those are some of the things that really need to be smoothed out, because I feel like we could probably sell it to an enterprise, but when it came down to, hey, we got 20 terabytes, we want to upload it this afternoon, yeah, that would be a challenge to do right now still.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wessel. And anything else? No, all good. Right, so I have a question now from Benjamin. Thanks for writing in. Benjamin's asking, interested in whether you've identified a specific market segment that's making more use of ArDrive than others. In short, have you found product market fit with a particular market? Is it in the realms of anything anyone uses on Dropbox for, or more niche?
Yes. So I would say there's maybe three groups. So one, definitely the anything anyone uses for Dropbox, right? And we have seen a few, what I would say, power users who have uploaded thousands of files and who are really using ArDrive as a replacement for their Dropbox. Group that we've really seen, probably similar to other platforms, is that NFT group, those creators, the people who are making primarily non-Arweave NFTs, so like Ethereum or Flow blockchain NFT. They're using ArDrive to upload their data and their metadata, and then tying that to their ERC 1155, whatever it is, contract for their NFT on OpenSea. So we've been seeing a lot of that. We've been seeing a lot of that for game designers and game developers. There have actually been a couple who have used ArDrive for mass uploading lots of public data for their games. Pulsar 79 was one of them by Gradacity. I think they're coming out with a second game that was also going to be used in ArDrive. So that's an interesting segment that I didn't foresee, and we're definitely trying to nurture that segment, and again, make ArDrive the best place to permanently upload your data for any NFT on any blockchain. And the third group we're starting to explore are people with their own creative works that need to store them permanently, but also need to keep additional metadata. So these are groups that are more like archivists, record keepers. In this one particular case, it's someone with historical car memorabilia, car photography, things like that. So we see the need for and this maybe is more the B2B side, but we see the need for people to not just have data, but attach all this rich metadata to it, and really meet the needs of archiving records. So that's a group that's we're slowly starting to dip our toe into, and it's slow because we need to iterate on the app, right? We have to build some more functionality to really support that type of group. So yeah, those are maybe a few groups that we've seen out there using ArDrive.
One other thing I'd like to add too is that we think that we're fundamentally offering a slightly different product than Dropbox, right? I mean, like we are offering storage, pay once, store forever storage on a decentralized, censorship resistant blockchain. That's just something Dropbox fundamentally can't do, right? And never will be able to do. Same for all the other major centralized storage services, iClouds, your G drives, your OneDrives. The other thing is too, we look at ourselves as like coexisting in this space, right? We're not trying to eat everybody's lunch on day one. Lots of people have different storage mediums for different things. Like I personally use just about all of those services I just mentioned in different contexts. And so, we want people to think about the kind of data they need to store forever for their different use cases. Phil's, mentioned a number of them here, but there's going to be more. And we need to hear more about people's use cases because we want to design the best possible fitting tools for them. So, engagements like this, where we get to speak with the community, the kind of communication that Anthony and others are doing at ArDrive with our community and lots of different social channels, all of that is super helpful for us to hear how people want to use ArDrive, how people want to store things forever. So yeah, we appreciate everyone that's joined today to tell us about their use cases and bring their questions, because it helps us to figure out how to design and build the best possible things for everybody.
I have another question from the chat from SS. Any plans for ArDrive to increase marketing, reach out to Hollywood, Netflix, Amazon Prime, wedding video, and photographers, animators on sites like Fiverr, basically anyone that creates digital media and makes them aware they can permanently store media and share anywhere in the world?
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to marketing, if we look at what we've really done over the past couple of months, we increased our engagement with Jacob Burma. He's been our kind of head of marketing and his team at Vibrant Content. So they're going to be putting a lot more effort into ArDrive, into things like how-to videos, revamp of our public site, looking at it, building some educational courses for new users, and starting to explore things like that. We also, Anthony, our new community manager, right? He's the first community manager that we've had. Us very recently, he's going to start, his outreach programs. We also hired somebody else recently, Andrew. You might have seen his name as kind of our community strategy, and he's going to be coming up with some exciting, fun ideas for the community to, increase our engagement. So we're starting to kind of expand our marketing reach, albeit at a more like social networky type of level. I love the ideas right there, like, reaching out to Netflix and Amazon Prime and, wedding photographers and, photo archival stores. Like there's lots of things we could do there. Maybe at some point we have like an ambassador system and we have the community maybe help out with some of those things, because there's just so many leads and follow-ups and just places to really talk about permanent storage. So yeah, maybe in 2022 is when we kind of amp up the marketing even more, beyond what we've currently done in the past couple of months.
Right. And a question from Crypt off Twitter. What if I want to delete a file, edit it, and upload it again? Do I then have to pay double the price?
Well, you can't delete a file, right? Kind of a workaround in ArDrive, at least, is you can create a folder called trash, and you can move the file in that trash folder. We're working on, or I shouldn't say we're working on it, but RFS, the protocol that we use, does support the ability to hide a file, right? So there could be a future where an ArDrive, similar to your local file system, right? You can hide a file, and then you can click on a view to show hidden files. Perhaps something like that comes to ArDrive. But as you know, it's once the data is mined, it's on Arweave, right? There's no way that we can delete it without going to every single node owner and convincing them to delete it. So to this question, they can't delete the first file. The second file that they upload, they'll have to pay for it again, right? It's new data going onto or not even new data, right? It's data going onto the network, and you need to pay the mining fee for it to get there. So, yeah.
I think it's actually an interesting point, because I think classically we always thought of Arweave as once it's up there, and you can't ever take it down. But I guess what you're saying is if you sort of upload it through ArDrive from the beginning, and it's not a public file, there is a way to sort of, you can't delete the file, but you can make sure nobody else sees it. It's like a private file,
right? Exactly. We could, make the ArDrive app not display a file with, hidden equals 1, for example, right? That's not to say you can't go to view block and find that transaction and just download that data, right? Or any other app that might surface that information. So it would be more of like, what is it? Security through obscurity type deal. But we do recognize sometimes you upload the wrong thing, and I like a nice organized, set of my own data. So maybe you put something in there and you do need to hide it. So that's why we recognize the need for that type of feature.
Sure. Nick Lee is asking, quick question on the likes of Kive and ArDrive. Why are they needed if their use case is the same as Arweave, as in they also store data, but so does Arweave?
So ArDrive, we're an application, right, that uses the decentralized network of Arweave, right? So we're not really the same. Arweave is kind of the core protocol that we use. We're a level above Arweave, I guess. I think Kive, they're also a little bit different, right? They're an application that's storing other blockchain data on Arweave, but then I think they have their own system of validator nodes and some of their own special sauce. I think we're just kind of fundamentally different on what we're trying to achieve, right? Arweave, we're more of an application. Ariel, I don't know if you want to comment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think this is a common question. I think it's a great one, and it helps people understand the value of ArDrive. When you think of Arweave is just a blockchain, right? This is a distributed ledger of essentially, we'll call them either currency exchanges, or what's more commonly understood for Arweave as just like data upload transaction records, right? So that's just, you could visualize that if you wanted to. You could visualize the blockchain in some way and use that as your way of navigating permanent storage. But the sort of ArDrive vision was built around RFS, right? The idea of taking this blockchain and turning it into a file system, right? Like being able to look at it as folders and as files with like version histories and things like that, right? Like that's a more natural way for individuals to conceive of and visualize, a collection of files. And so, RFS was the sort of critical layer that ArDrive built on top of Arweave to sort of take that blockchain and view it as a file system. And then ArDrive itself, built on top of RFS, is sort of the UI presentation layer or the platform of apps that will be coming out soon that allow you to sort of interface with RFS and to do things like add your own encryption passwords so that your private drives, are end-to-end encrypted as you upload them and then as you manage them later on. So, I think that's the key value add of ArDrive and RFS, and that's what differentiates us from just Arweave as a blockchain that's built around permanent storage.
Got it. Thanks a lot for clarifying. I actually wanted to ask you guys, when I was looking at your website earlier, I saw a very interesting section, fiat on-ramps, and there were two options. Yes, I think that's really awesome. But can you tell us a little bit about that? Are those unique to? Are they part of ArDrive? Are they unique to ArDrive, or are these sort of more general Fiat on-ramps for Arweave?
Yeah, these are general Fiat on-ramps for Arweave. So this was something that I tried to embark on, gosh, I don't know if it was January or February. I think we had a community call with some of the other founders, and we talked about, the lack of an easy way to just get AR tokens, right? Without having to go to an exchange and submit KYC and move funds in and take them out, and all that stuff, right? That could take days, depending on where you're from in the world. So we, through some of the ArDrive investors, we were tuned into Transact. We started, working with them. They did all the heavy lifting, right? They plumbed their platform to connect to Arweave. I think they sourced liquidity from Binance. But also in parallel, there was Ramp Network, who was also very interested in supporting the Arweave ecosystem. So, we figured, well, more options is better, right? We didn't want to pick sides or anything like that. So both services managed to come out in very similar timeframes. So we, link to both of them. I think the experiences are a little different between each. I think the fees are mostly the same, but also might be higher in one than the other. Unfortunately, they both don't support the United States yet. So again, there's still some gaps that we want to fill, in the story of getting AR tokens really easily. But yeah, we were excited to have that done because we've been saying, Fiat on-ramp for a really long time. And, at least there is a place for some people to start getting AR tokens in a more seamless way.
Fantastic. So I guess we're approaching top of the hour, and I think it's been a really engaging chat. I do have a couple of last questions about for me, but if any of you guys have listening have any more questions, feel free to jump in before I'll give you one last go at the end. But yeah, I just wanted to get an overall idea. So, I think we spoke around coming up to, well, nine months or so ago. But so what's been sort of the biggest change in this year for you? Have global events impacted your business much? And then also where do you see things going in the near future?
Have global events impacted us? I mean, obviously we're impacted by the overall state of Arweave, right? And what's going on in the crypto market in terms of just, people being excited for it or not. But overall, I mean, we've been, since we did our seed round, we've been kind of on this path ever since, right? And nothing can really affect that other than our own, other than us, right? We know what we have to do, right? Over the next few months, over the past few months, we've spent time building out the team. We've spent time improving our development processes, whether that's writing code or testing, and streamline a lot of that stuff. So over the next few months, I'm hopeful that we can really churn out some new things, whether it is small little apps like pricing calculator, or whether it's, the full web redesign, our mobile app, iOS and Android mobile app. I think those are going to be some of the cool things that we're looking to do. I mean, Ariel, it's been, gosh, you started in June, right? So it's almost been 2.5 months now. Time really flies. What would you say is kind of looking forward to?
Well, yeah, I'd say the biggest change from my perspective is just, we brought a lot more rigor to our engineering processes. We're doing a ton more testing than we've ever done before now, and really looking at our code a lot more holistically, as well as our just overall development. Honestly, all of our processes from design all the way through implementation, testing, and then support. So I think as an engineering organization, we're transforming quite a bit. And that's going to empower us to do all these exciting things that you're talking about, Phil, like supporting all these new markets and new use cases people are envisioning for RFS and for ArDrive. So to me, that's the biggest change. I mean, that's my Johnny come lately opinion. But it's the thing that I'm most excited about, right, is watching this sort of team turn into a really well-oiled machine and be able to really deliver for the community as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I think Phil, when you were speaking, it just came to mind, and thanks, by the way, Ariel. It came to mind what I think it was Vimal mentioned earlier about yield. I think if you can find a way to sort of at least display even sort of an estimated yield, I think that might be a big hit within DeFi circles, because I think users are really, crypto natives are really primed for that. And even if it's sort of in sort of past tense, if you like, an estimate might be it might sort of give it a bit of a marketing push, or sort of an awareness push, if you like, within the crypto space, because everybody likes yield. But the crazy thing is that most of the protocols who are sort of advertising yield, it's sort of really reliant on more people just piling in and buying and staking. Whereas for you guys, you're actually providing not just a service, but a very valuable and sort of tangible service, if you like, permanent file storage on top of Arweave. So yeah, I mean, I think that was a really interesting point he mentioned.
Yeah, and that definitely makes sense, right? People like to understand why, if I'm going to hold this thing, what do I get out of it? And we don't have any easy way to understand that. We started thinking about things like a leaderboard, right, where you can go and see your own score when it comes to dust, and how what your rewards have been, and maybe how your referrals are doing, and maybe trying to gamify that a little bit, and of course showing, hey, you've been rewarded with this much AR over the past this amount of time, right? So yeah, I really love that idea. It's kind of just folding it into everything else, but it makes sense, Rob. People like to see what they're going to earn. That it fuels the desire for the
Yeah, and I mean, all that information is sort of mineable from the blockchain, right? And you could do your own GQL to sort of compute these things. And we're doing some of that internally for ourselves, obviously, and so publishing that might be something that we could do. We're in a really complex regulatory environment right now as well, so we try to be very deliberate and very cautious and compliant as we kind of make decisions about like how we speak about things like a yield, for example. This is just a profit sharing community, and everything that we do is transparent on the blockchain. So I do think that maybe publishing some like aggregate numbers in terms of like what has been distributed to the community, for example, seems like something that's probably doable, but we'll have to just double check internally on whether that's going to be from a legal standpoint a light lift or a heavy lift. And could be something that we do soon.
Makes sense. Well, gents, yeah, I think top of the hour. It's been really, really decent conversation, very engaging, lots of different questions, and thanks participants for stepping up and asking those. Wanted to give you guys a chance, and any last thoughts or words, and indeed, audience, if you have any last questions, feel free. Otherwise, we can finish it here.
Yeah, I mean, my only last thought is, again, thank you for everyone listening. Thank you to everybody who's had an interest in ArDrive. We hit our 1 year kind of anniversary. I can't believe we've come this far. Rob, I think you've been here most of that time, if not all of it, right? So I appreciate your continual support, and thank you for hosting this little AMA. I'm hopeful it was useful to the Arweaver community.
It was a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining. All right, guys. Well, we'll finish up here, and thanks a lot. It was really good to hear your updates.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks.